Hey guys, it's me, Miss Norris, and today I'd like to share a fun Christmas read aloud with you of the story How the Grinch Stole Christmas. The story How the Grinch Stole Christmas was originally written in 1957 by Dr. Seuss, and it tells the story of the Grinch. If you're ready to hear the story, I'm ready to share it with you. Here we go. How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Every Who down in Who-ville liked Christmas a lot. So we got a little Who, and he loves Christmas a lot. But the Grinch, who lived just north of Who-ville, did not. The Grinch hated Christmas, the whole Christmas season. Now, please don't ask why. No one quite knows the reason. It could be his head wasn't screwed on just right. It could be, perhaps, that his shoes were too tight. But I think that the most likely reason of all may have been that his heart was two sizes too small. So everyone loved Christmas except for the Grinch. Well, maybe because his heart was tiny. But whatever the reason, his heart or his shoes, he stood there on Christmas Eve, hating the Whos, staring down from his cave with a sour, grinchy frown at the warm lighted windows below in their town. For he knew every Who down in Whoville beneath was busy now hanging a mistletoe wreath. And they're hanging their stockings, he snarled with a sneer. Tomorrow is Christmas, it's practically here. Then he growled with his Grinch fingers nervously drumming. I must find some way to stop Christmas from coming. For tomorrow he knew. So he hates Christmas and he wants it to stop. And he's getting ready for a plan. For tomorrow he knew all the Who girls and boys would wake up bright and early. They'd rush for their toys. And then, oh, the noise. Oh, the noise, 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 noise. That's one thing he hated. The noise. Noise, noise, noise. So that's one thing he doesn't like about Christmas is that it's loud. Then the Whos, young and old, would sit down to a feast, and they'd feast, and they'd feast, and they'd feast, 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 feast. They would feast on Who pudding and rare Who roast beast, which was something the Grinch couldn't stand in the least. So after they opened all their toys, they would feast, and the Grinch hated that too. And then they'd do something he liked least of all. Every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, would stand close together with Christmas bells ringing. They'd stand hand in hand, and the Whos would start singing. They'd sing, and they'd sing, and they'd sing, 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 sing. And the more the Grinch thought of this Who Christmas sing, the more the Grinch thought, I must stop this whole thing. Why, for 53 years I've put up with it now. I must stop this Christmas from coming. But how? So he hated the toys with the noise. He hated the feast with the rare Who roast beast. And he hated the singing. And he's hated it for over 50 years. Then he got an idea. An awful idea. The Grinch got a wonderful, awful idea. I know just what to do! Ha 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 ha! The Grinch laughed in his throat, and he made a quick Santa Claus hat and a coat, and he clucked and clucked. What a great Grinchy trick! With this coat and this hat, I look just like Saint Nick. All I need is a reindeer. The Grinch looked around, but since reindeer are scarce, there was none to be found. Did that stop the old Grinch? No. The Grinch simply said, if I can't find a reindeer, I'll make one instead. So he called his dog Max. Then he took some red thread and he tied a big horn on the top of his head. So we still don't know what the Grinch's idea is, but it involves dressing up like Santa Claus and dressing his dog up like a reindeer. Then he loaded some bags and some old empty sacks on a ramshackle sleigh, and he hitched up old Max. Then the Grinch said, "Giddy up!" and the sleigh started down towards the homes where the Whos lay a snooze in their town. So he's going down to Who-ville with Max and empty sacks. All their windows were dark. Quiet snow filled the air. All the Whos were all dreaming sweet dreams without care. When he came to the first little house on the square, "This is stop number 1, the old Grinchy Claus hissed, and he climbed to the roof, empty bags in his fist. So he's at J.P. Who's house. Then he slid down the chimney, a rather tight pinch. But if Santa could do it, then so could the Grinch. He got stuck only once, for a moment or two. Then he stuck his head out of the fireplace flue, where the little Who stockings all hung in a row. "These stockings," he grinned, "are the first things to go." So he's coming down the chimney in Who-ville and saying that the first thing to go are the stockings. And all the little Whos are asleep in their beds. Then he slithered and slunk with a smile most unpleasant around the whole room, and he took every present. Pop guns and bicycles, roller skates, drums, checkerboards, tricycles, popcorn, and plums, and he stuffed them in bags. Then the Grinch very nimbly stuffed all the bags, one by one, up the chimney. So he took all the presents and then he's putting them in his own bags and sending them up the chimbley. But wait, there's more. Then he slunk to the icebox. He took the Who's feast. He took the Who pudding. He took the roast beast. He cleaned out that icebox as quick as a flash. Why, that Grinch even took their last can of Who hash. Stockings, check. Presents, check. Who feast, check. Then he stuffed all the food up the chimney with glee. "And now," grinned the Grinch, "I will stuff up the tree." So the only thing left is the tree, and he's going to take that too. And the Grinch grabbed the tree and he started to shove when he heard a small sound like the coo of a dove. Ooh. He turned around fast and he saw a small Who, little Cindy Lou Who was not more than 2. The Grinch had been caught by this tiny Who daughter who'd got out of bed for a cup of cold water. She stared at the Grinch and said, "Santa Claus, why? Why are you taking our Christmas tree? Why?" Busted. Cindy Lou Who was getting some water and she saw that Grinch. But she thinks it's Santa Claus. It is why. But you know that old Grinch was so smart and so slick. He thought up a lie, and he thought it up quick. "Why, my sweet little tot," the fake Santa Claus lied, "there's a light on this tree that won't light on one side. So I'm taking it home to my workshop, my dear. I'll fix it up there, then I'll bring it back here." And his fib fooled the child. Then he patted her head, and he got her a drink and sent her to bed. And when Cindy Lou Who went to bed with her cup, he went to the chimney and stuffed the tree up. So he said he's going to go fix their tree. Then he helped get her some water and sent her to bed. And then took that tree. Then the last thing he took was the log for their fire. Then he went up the chimney himself, the old liar. On their walls he left nothing but hooks and some wire. And the one speck of food that he left in the house was a crumb that was even too small for a mouse. So he left up all the stuff to hang things. He took their log from their fire, and the only food he left was even too small for the mouse. Grinchy. Then he did the same thing to the other Who's houses, leaving crumbs much too small for the other Who's mouses. So again, took everything except for the one crumb. It was dawn, all the Who's still abed, all the Who's still a snooze when he packed up his sled. Packed it up with their presents, the ribbons, the wrappings, the tags and the tinsel, the trimmings, the trappings. He has everything that he thinks makes the Who's Christmas special. All of it. And they're still asleep. 3,000 feet up the side of Mount Crumpet, he rode with his load to the tip-top to dump it. "Pooh-pooh to the Who's," he was Grinchishly humming. "They're finding out now that no Christmas is coming. They're just waking up. I know just what they'll do. Their mouths will hang open a minute or two. Then the Who's down in Who-ville will all cry, boo-hoo." He didn't care. He's going to go dump all their Christmas over the side of a cliff. And now he's listening for the noise of sadness. "That's a noise," grinned the Grinch, "that I simply must hear." So he paused, and the Grinch put his hand to his ear, and he did hear a sound rising over the snow. It started in low, then it started to grow. So he's listening for the sound of crying, and he's starting to hear something, and he likes it. But the sound wasn't sad. Why, this sound sounded merry. It couldn't be so, but it was merry, very. It started down at Who-ville. The Grinch popped his eyes. Then he shook. What he saw was a shocking surprise. So the Grinch and Max are both very surprised because they're not hearing a sound of sadness. They're hearing something merry. Very merry. Every Who down in Who-ville, the tall and the small, was singing without any presents at all. He hadn't stopped Christmas from coming. It came. Somehow or other, it came just the same. So instead of crying, they still all joined hands and sang. And Grinch doesn't understand. He did everything to stop Christmas, but it still came. And the Grinch, with his Grinch feet ice cold in the snow, stood puzzling and puzzling. How could it be so? It came without ribbons. It came without tags. It came without packages, boxes, or bags. And he puzzled 3 hours till his puzzler was sore. Then the Grinch thought of something he hadn't before. Maybe Christmas, he thought, doesn't come from a store. Maybe Christmas, perhaps, means a little bit more. So he didn't understand how these people can still be so merry, and now he's realizing that maybe Christmas doesn't come from a store. And what happened then? Well, in Who-ville, they say that the Grinch's small heart grew 3 sizes that day. And the minute his heart didn't feel quite so tight, he whizzed with his load through the bright morning light, and he brought back the toys and the food for the feast. And he himself, the Grinch, carved the roast beast. The end. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you really enjoyed the story of how the Grinch stole Christmas. If you did, please hit that thumbs up button at the bottom of the page. If you are already a subscriber, thank you so much for your support. It really means a lot to me. If you are not a subscriber yet, please click that subscribe button down at the bottom of the page. And don't forget to click the bell so that you're notified when there's new content. I hope to see you all again real soon. Bye-bye and Merry Christmas.